Okay, so we're looking at making our first piece of jewellery, which is going to be one of these ruffle style brooches. As you can see, there's a different choice of size, and you can choose what you're putting in the centre of your ruffle. For some of these I've used buttons, for some of them I've used pearls, and for this one I've actually used the ruffle but turned it round on itself. You can make a different size of brooch depending on which size you want. If you want a tiny one, I've made a tiny one here into part of one of the pieces of necklace that we're going to be looking at later, or larger ones that you can use either as corsage, or you can even put them along the edge of a t-shirt, for example. So the first thing you need to choose is your contrasting material. Which two materials, or possibly three if you want to make 3 ruffles, you're going to put together. For the demonstration one, I've chosen the pink material here, you can see, and I've chosen this Tupperware lid to make this size outside, and I've just drawn around it with a pen and then cut it out. And then for the smaller inside piece, I've done the same with a white piece of material. Just put those out of the way. When I then start to sew, I've got the two sides of the material. You want the side that you want to show in this part of the brooch to be facing down towards the table. I've then threaded a needle, and it needs to be double cotton, and you need a double knot on the end. When I used to sew with my grandmother, she said don't use needles that are like pokers, i.e. very thick, to poke the fire with, but for this you do need quite a big needle because the material will be quite thick, and to make the ruffle you need to sew through quite a lot of material. You start your stitching around the edge, and it's just the most basic of stitches, where you go through the material, and on a rosette this size you're looking for about 1 centimetre of stitching. You can see on the other side there, that's how it's coming out. You might think, why am I not using the same colour cotton as the material? If you think about, I'm just pulling it straight here so that it doesn't bunch up. But it doesn't actually matter for the bottom flower what colour the cotton is, because as you can see here, the actual stitching is covered by your second rosette. The top one, obviously, it matters slightly more, and if you're sewing a button through, you will see the colour of thread that you have used if the button has the holes in it like that one does. And I really hope this cotton doesn't catch up. If it catches up, just go back gently like that, okay? And keep going round with your stitches, like so. This is actually a brooch that Miss Castillo was shown how to make when she went to her sewing class. Apparently her sister dragged her along, and this was one of the first things that she made. So when we were talking about preparing for these workshops, she told me about this, and then as you can see from the choices we've got there, it you know, got me going as well, because I've made a lot of them. So I'm nearly now round to where I started, and you don't go through the place where you started, you go up to it like I've done, and then you start to pull the stitches together. And this is why it was important that you had your double pieces of thread. Because if you didn't double thread it, it will actually break off, and that obviously is what you don't want. You can see the ruches on this material, because it's quite a thick material, are forming really quite nicely. And you want to sort of try and push those inside as much as you can really. If you can get those finished off, and you can fiddle about with this for a while depending on how you want your ruching to go really. Obviously, because with the rosette it's best if the ruches go in the middle. You just sort of push against the back of the material to make that happen. Then I want to make sure that these ruches are caught together. So I'm pushing the needle through about 5 or 6 of the ruches, and this is why you do need your poker style needle, because it does need to be capable of going through quite a lot of these pieces of ruching without you pushing your hand or whatever too much against it. I've just caught myself there, which is what you want not to do. And then you keep sort of going so that your ruches are caught together in the middle, because obviously if they're not caught together they will unravel. And again, it's not too late at this stage just to put your little ruches together. So I'm going to put that one to one side, and then going to get my white thread. Again, I've got 2 knots at the end, and I'm looking. I think I want it to be on the shiny side up. So I repeat this same process again, sewing around the outside. Because this is my slightly smaller circle, I might do slightly smaller stitches, or I might just stick to the same size stitches so that your ruches will match, like they did on the other ones. It's just occurred to me that on the pink one I think I showed you at the beginning, I must have used a slightly bigger outside part, because it does seem to have come out bigger than the one I'm showing you now. I did do some trial ones with smaller things this morning, as you can see from those ones on the front, and they were awfully fiddly. So unless your sewing is quite advanced and you're very good at fiddling about with things, I would advise that you stick with the slightly bigger lids there that I've showed you and that I've brought with me, or that you find something around the room that you can draw around. As you see, it doesn't matter that you can see the pen or whatever you drew around with, that doesn't matter at all. So again, I'm coming back to nearly where I started, and I'm pulling together again just like I did before, going towards my little ruffly bit there. So it's not quite in the middle there, so I just want to fiddle about slightly more with that one. Just open it up again, push it back in that direction, push it and pull it a little bit. Again, it's really important that you've got your double threading here, because if you haven't got your double thread, then, as happened to me yesterday, it will all come out and look a right mess and all fall apart. So just trying to push those little end bits, the frame bits, into the middle there before I sew it together, because that will just make it a little bit easier in a moment. So I'm just catching together as many of these little bits as I can. Just going around a few times, pushing quite hard through there with my nice thick poker-like needle. And do that just once more, I think, so that I've now got that. Okay, so I've now got my bottom one and my top one, and now I need to choose what I want to put on it. You could put a tiny bead on here, a larger button, different button, it's entirely up to you. Oh dear, that's not what I wanted to happen. You just need to check that your cotton's all sorted out when you thread on your little bead there. So I'm just going to push that through like so, everything's catching now, and then make sure that my bead is standing up. So might just go through there another time and sew back underneath. Because I'm using white thread, obviously you won't be able to see the cotton. So that's standing now quite nicely and strongly. Might just thread back one small there just to make sure that that's quite safe, and then I'm going to push that through there. And then to finish this one off, I'm going to sew through to the back here so that you've not got any more cotton. That's Mr. Glennon in the background with the DIY pot. He's currently painting the skirting board. I did shut the door before, but obviously he's opened it again. You can hear him washing. Right, so you've got those there, about 3 stitches, and then you push one longer one through and you cut off close to the edge of the cotton as you can. Now I've chosen to do this in a different colour cotton, but for the purposes of the filming I've chosen to stick with this colour. So I'm now going to sew together the larger back rosette and the smaller top one. And I haven't cut off the cotton from the first time that we did this, so it's still in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew through the white, sew through the pink, and turn it round again. Catch the white material. Hello Mr. Glennon, are you going to be in the film? He's pulling all sorts of funny faces now. And I'm turning round and round here, pushing through at the side again. Don't know if Christian's getting that or not, my hands are all in the way. So I'm continually turning the rosette, I'm catching the white part, I'm catching the pink part, pulling it, turn again, white, pink, and obviously eventually you'll get round to where you started off at the beginning. I think I'm nearly there now. So I've got through to that very last bit there, and again you can see it's quite tough, so I did need a poker needle. So I've got all of those now, and then I'll just take the cotton through to the back of my piece of sewing, and again I'll do my finishing off part. So this time you need to go through the same hole. Before we were avoiding the starting point, but this time we're going through it. I would do it at least 3 times if you don't want it to come unravelled, and then you push right through underneath, a bit further along, just like we did when we started. You cut that off there, okay? And there you have your latest little rosette.